Hello and welcome to another Miniature Realms video. My name's Stuart and another slightly different video for you today. So like many fans of wargaming and toy soldiers who go on to become parents, I think a lot of us will dream of the days that we may be able to entice our children to play games with us and see them with the sparkle in their eye and the same passions that we remember ourselves when we first started, especially those of us who started at a younger age rather than finding the hobby during adult life. Now I'm in my early 40s, and like many people of that kind of age, I found my way into wargaming first through Games Workshop, through Hero Quest, finding early White Dwarfs. I think my first issue was 138 maybe. And then discovering through that and Hero Quest that there was this company called Games Workshop, and there was a thing called Citadel Miniatures, and it opened up this whole new world of excitement for me. And like many, I had a dip out of wargaming when I went to university and for a few years afterwards. But after that I came back in a big way. But this video isn't really about that. This video is about me as a parent thinking about how I could get my eldest son, who's nearly 7 now, so not very old and younger than I was really when I first picked up some miniatures, at least for wargaming anyway. I would have had the odd Airfix model kit at that age. I would have definitely had plastic soldiers that I played with, but to actually understand wargaming as a hobby I probably didn't really at that age. But things have changed, kids seem to be doing things younger. And my son Jacob is very much interested in what I do for a living, which is painting miniatures. So he sees miniatures around all the time. They're very, very natural in the environment in the home. He comes into my office while I'm working, and there's miniatures everywhere. And he's been painting his own miniatures for a couple of years now. And he's definitely getting more interested in playing games. We play board games as a family and things, and his maths isn't too bad for his age. He's actually doing quite well with it. So I've been thinking of a way to get him involved in miniature wargaming, and the new Warhammer 40,000 Imperium Partwork magazine from Hatchet Productions, I believe, has caught my eye, and I wondered if it was a way to break the game down into smaller chunks and to see if it worked for him. Now I've picked up Games Workshop's Battle Games in Middle-earth magazine that was produced around the times of the film coming out, and I've picked them up afterwards, but they break it down very simply at the beginning, introducing new players into the game that have never come across wargaming before. And I just thought it might be a better way of approaching teaching him some rules rather than picking up a starter set and wondering what to leave out, because I'd need to leave a lot out. So that was the goal behind it, and this video is really about exploring that and whether it worked. I've actually picked up the first 3 issues. I want to talk a little bit about whether I plan to getting on, whether I plan to get more, whether he's enjoyed it, and whether I think it would work as a series to keep going to teach someone of his age. We've played the initial few games using magazine issue 1. I haven't given him issues 2 and 3 yet. I'm trying to spread it out as little treats at weekends and things rather than just give them to him all in one go. But he really enjoyed playing the mini scenario that's just in Imperium Magazine 1, which just involves 2 miniatures, 1 on each side, and very simple shooting mechanics. But he learnt it very quickly, but what he needed to move. Both miniatures move different distances, what he needed to roll to hit, what he needed to roll to save, and what he needed to do for the little extra part of the mission if you're the Necron in the game. But we'll discuss that a little bit more as I kind of flip through the magazine. So it's not a review as such, but it's more of a kind of discussion about whether I think it's a good way to get younger children into the hobby, and we'll see how it goes from there. So we'll start with Imperium Magazine number 1. Like all partworks, they start a lot cheaper to hook you in with the first magazine, and what you see in front of you is what you get in the first pack. So you get a small magazine as such, which has a little bit about the miniatures that you get in the magazine. Some ways you can record what the weapons are called if you wanted to, a little bit about the Necrons. So there's a Space Marine Lieutenant, Primaris Lieutenant, the new style, and the new sculpts from the Necrons from the latest starter kit, and a little bit about them, and you can record their name and things should you want to. A little bit of fluff and background about Space Marines, a little bit about Necrons, the building guide for each of the miniatures, a little bit on how to paint, so just a basic introduction, and about the standard paint system they use. There's nothing about contrast paint in there, and there's this little thing about the game, so it talks to you about how the game could be played, and it takes you through what you need in this to play your first game, and so it gives you like a mini scenario, tells you what you need to do to achieve it. Very, very stripped down basic stat cards, which I thought were fantastic. Really, really simple. You can see very, very clearly how many dice you need for your weapon, and then you've got 4 other stats, which is absolutely brilliant for teaching a 6-year-old, nearly 7-year-old to play. He learnt that in no time whatsoever. And then it does talk you through it, and it actually gives you a narrative example. But essentially what you have to do is the Space Marine has to kill the Necron, and the Necron can kill the Space Marine, but has 3 objectives to flip over, and if when he lands on one he rolls a 5 or a 6, he calls in reserves and wins the game. So there's like a tiny little sub objective as well. Incredibly simple, not really designed at adults for any more than maybe the first time you ever play, but for my son, who's just to say nearly 7, he absolutely loved it, and he played it lots of times. We played it about 5 times in a row. This first issue, for that alone, so the price with 2 miniatures and that basic kind of stat line alone was absolutely fantastic. And if you did nothing else, there's a way you can play using those basic stat lines with miniatures. Now there's a little bit of extra fluff. They've all kind of got holes for ring binders. You can obviously buy extra binders, so I guess you build these up and collect over time. There's a poster which also shows all the stuff you can get if you get every single issue, and you can also buy a premium subscription where you get extra miniatures as well. But they start to get more expensive. I believe issue 2, which I'll show a little bit of in a moment, is $5.99, and then after that they got to $8.99, and I'll come back with my thoughts on that in a moment. So you get this little game board in the pack, which is double-sided. You have to cut out these little counters for wounds on the end. I mean, they're not really needed, you could record them, but as a child playing the game they're much more visible. Little objective markers, and you set your miniatures up on the board, and you've got a nice plastic range ruler and 6 dice, and it's just great for $2.99. It's a bargain for the miniatures alone. You know, I've got no huge desire to play 40k outside of playing it with my son, but I did grow up with 40k, and it definitely holds something in my heart. It's something that brings back lovely memories, but it's just not something I'm super interested in at the moment. I'm playing historical games, I'm playing Middle Earth strategy battle game, so I probably wouldn't go out and start a 40k army or start playing it without him, but if it's something he became interested in, I'd be very happy to play it at home within the family. And the miniatures themselves are fantastic. Let's have a little closer look at those now. So I was really impressed by the miniatures. They're not completely super easy push fit ones. They are multi-part. I wouldn't say these magazines are aimed at 6 or 7 year olds, but he wouldn't have been able to build these without my help. But again, that wasn't so much of a problem for the way I wanted to use this. It was something we could do together, and it was really nice spending the time together. They may struggle to be able to put some of these miniatures together by themselves without a little bit of help, but they're good quality modern Games Workshop sculpts. I mean, 40Ks and Games Workshop is really not your thing anyway. You might look another way of getting your child into wargaming. So as I touched on before, that first issue was a perfect introduction to playing a very, very small game with toy soldiers. I picked up issues 2 and 3 just to see whether they would add enough to make the game a little bit more challenging, add another layer to it, but not too much complexity. And they seem to work quite well, because the next 2 magazines are adding to the forces you've started collecting. So in magazine number 2, you get 3 Necron warriors, a paintbrush, and a paint to paint your Necrons with. And again, you get much of the same stuff, so a little bit about Necrons in terms of fluff, a little bit more there. Some about the Ultramarines. Now he's not going to read all of this to himself right now. I might read little bits to him. How to build for these warriors, another how to paint, a little bit more information this time, and I'd happily read through some of this with him, and I think he would take interest. And it's not got too much text, so he's an early reader, but he's starting to read a little bit, so it might be good. But the stage by stage pictures are really useful as well, and he's happy to flick through magazines like these. And then you have another mission to add to the one that we've played already, which was one model v1 model, and this time it's your Primaris lieutenant up against the 3 Necron warriors. So you're using your miniature from the first issue, and again it's just adding something else that you can play, so it just builds. So when we go through this and at the weekend or the weekend after, I know he's going to be excited. We'll build those Necrons and we will play the new mission, and it'll add almost like a new game to it. And he's already talking about playing a bigger game, having a larger game board, and maybe playing some miniatures against each other. And he's dug out some of the miniatures that he's already got. So again, really happy with what it's added. The increased cost is where you have to start thinking, where does it all add up to versus buying a cheap starter set. I think the cheapest starter set is around the £30 mark. I'll put the proper price up on the screen now, and you have to start weighing up how many issues of this magazine before you spend more than you would for a starter set. But I do like the way that the rules and the missions are laid out. And then we go on to number 3, and that adds 3 Primaris Marines. You've then got sort of equal size in terms of number, and you've got a McCrag blue paint if you want to paint your paint them as Ultramarines. And again, a very, very similar thing. So these are assault troops. So not only do you get all your fluff and things, and a bit more information that he may or may not read, but you this time, after all the painting guides, so painting guides for Ultramarines, the mission is slightly different. It's bringing in the Necrons versus the Primaris and teaching you about the assault phase. So you've got hand-to-hand combat and shooting involved now. So from these 3 issues, you have shooting and assault and 2 fairly equal sides. And I think for now that's where I'm going to stop. I mean, total cost, we're getting up to sort of £21-22 spent on it. You definitely will get more miniatures, better value in terms of miniatures by buying a little starter set. But in terms of the way it's laid out and progress for learning the rules with a younger child, I think this is really, really good. So it may be good finding these on eBay where the miniatures have already been taken, and just pick up the magazines if you wanted to do this on the cheap. I would definitely recommend them as a parent, as a way of teaching a younger child how to play a war game. Very, very stripped back, removing lots of the kind of extra bits, special rules that are around the game, and just really breaking it down into very, very simple stats: shooting, fighting in close combat, and having a very simple mission of escaping one side or collecting something. The excitement from just a simple game of one-on-one was brilliant, so I know he's going to love these as well. So and I'm probably going to sit on it after a while after that. I may pick up the odd one if I can find it as a bargain somewhere, but these are weekly, and that's one of the other concerns, is that you could end up spending $8.99 per week moving forward, and that's just too much. That's more pocket money than he gets a week, and he'll have other things he'd want to buy. And even as a parent giving him treats, regardless of whether it's affordable or not to spend $8.99, I know it wouldn't be for a lot of parents. I also think it's an awful lot to kind of become engaged with, and that's not a slight at Games Workshop or Hatchet who make the magazine. It is what it is. But in terms of collecting a magazine that might go to 60, 80 issues or something like that, it's not something I'll be doing for him right now, but it doesn't mean I will not treat him to the odd magazine in the future. But these first 3 issues definitely provide you with 2 nice little equal size, a little introduction to the way Warhammer 40k works, and a really, really nice basic game that you can play with a child. As an adult, I'm not sure I'd find these quite as exciting, if I'm honest with you. I think starting via a starter box route is a better way to go. So a little bit of a different video really, but it was really nice to spend some time with Jacob, not just painting the odd miniature, but playing a game with him, and I'm really excited about bringing out the next issue, and then in a week or so after bringing out the one after that, and playing through the new rules in there and making the games a little bit bigger. But I think the next stage after that will just be to pick up some more miniatures cheap on eBay somewhere and increasing the size of the armies, rather than adding to the complexity of any rules and worrying about spending $8.99 on future magazines. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you're not a fan of Games Workshop, please don't be angry with me producing this video, as I'm not starting 40k on the channel. It is very much a parent's kind of, how do I start my child in wargaming, so keep it in that kind of context, please. Any comments below. I'd love to know what you think, whether any of you guys think of other games that aren't by Games Workshop that you think are really good for younger children, and that will be interesting for younger children, in terms of the quality of the miniatures and the ease of use. I mean, you could strip down any rules, but some just don't have that appeal. But thanks very much for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you soon.